making use of the extra fanciest pants lighting I can get my hands on, or I guess I can get my eyes on, to be more accurate. Which, you know, maybe don't get used to that. Like if there's a spot at your gym where you frankly look like a total beast, even more than normal, it's probably healthy to do some pose downs away from that spot, because you could artificially like give yourself the idea that you look like that in extra crazy lighting, which I mean you do in the moment, but tomorrow morning when I wake up, I mean I'm just gonna you know, I'll look like I regularly do. So I'm trying not to get attached to a crazy in the gym wild ass pump look, but doesn't mean you can't enjoy it while you got it. Now, have I got a question for you? Have I got a little bit of a question? And this is something I'm actually curious about, because a lot of different people have a lot of different answers for what I'm about to ask. But what, you know, I'm not going to say who inspires you. That's not exactly the question I'm thinking of now. But what I will say is, you know, who gets you amped? Like, what do you watch? Who do you watch? Is it like a music video? Is it a compilation from a show, or like fight scenes, or just whatever? Like, what do you see that just gets you freaking, I don't want to say your blood boiling, because that would kind of imply that you're like pissed. No, I'm saying like, what gets you just freaking like, you know, if you're watching your phone in the parking lot in front of the gym and you see this, you tell yourself, holy shit, I'm about to go freaking nuts right now. Right. For me, it dabbles. It dabbles. For one, obviously, this was much more of my original inspo, was watching all the Machiavelli motivation videos, and the guys who were probably most prominently shown in those ones, at least the ones that I saw, a lot of Dorian Yates, a lot of Tom Platz, a lot of Kevin 𝒮𝓂, I think. Beasts. Right? And also, it's a very direct motivation, because they're doing the thing that I'm about to be doing, and they do it insanely, incredibly well, and it's just like really hyped up, like that gets you going. Right? But I don't think you have to only source your motivation for a specific topic based on people who are really good at that topic too, right? It could be anybody, you know? So that's where, for me, if you watch any kind of like different shows or whatever, where they've got music videos and kind of highlighted scenes from the whoever, you know, I'm talking Reiner and Bertolt, I'm talking Goku Vegeta, I'm talking Baki Yujiro. Right now, obviously that's a little more anime biased, but it's pretty cool. I mean, the whole gist, like if I were to describe the basic plot of a lot of these shows, you know, and it's like whether or not you're into it, whatever, but like the basic storyline of each of these parts of things, where it's, you know, protagonist, antagonist, conflict, resolution. It's, at least with a lot of those shows, the conflict is, holy crap, I gotta beat the shit out of this guy who's like way stronger than I am. All right, I better go train. I better get to a certain level of like, you know, training ability and experience and skill. I'm gonna put that skill to the test, and then they're either gonna win or lose. And just that basic ass you know, premise put into a million different ways with a million different, you know, other storylines and things like that, that gets me going, right? That gets me freaking excited. You know, if I'm listening to like a TikTok edit or some kind of video or something like that, where it's highlighting, you know, whatever show, where I already get motivated from watching this thing, and it's a really cool like edit music video, and the music is really getting me going, well then now I just stacked 3 different kinds of motivation in one little form of media that I get to listen to and kind of get myself amped up preset with. Now, some people follow the idea, like I knew one guy back in college where I remember him saying pretty like specifically, no headphones, no phone in the gym. I don't need distractions. I don't need a crutch. You know, and guys even say, I'm not taking pre-workout, dude. You know, what happens if I forget it? I don't want to become reliant on it. So I guess that begs the question, am I reliant on pre-workout? And to that, I'd say for the workout, I guess, but I'm also reliant on my car to get to the gym. And Like, it's not bad to be reliant like that. I think they don't like the idea of like being dependent, like having a dependency where it's like, well, you know, if I forget my headphones, am I really gonna be able to work out that hard? And for me, I've never really locked into that logic. It didn't make a ton of sense to me, because even if I didn't, I mean, let's say we go freaking Stone Age, we get hit with a worldwide sun flare that shuts the internet down for months. Guess what? I'm still gonna get some badass lifts. The fact that I can't watch a certain video that gets me amped up, I'm still gonna be able to bring it. But what I'm saying is, if you have things in your pocket, if you've got cards that you can play to get yourself into that headspace during a workout, to get yourself to do your cardio, to track your calories, to do whatever, do it, you know? And that's one thing which I don't like. This is the one study I want to see. This is the study that I really want, legit, you know, peer-reviewed, multiple subjects, whatever, of force exertion and training adherence by characters who get themselves freaking amped up to the max versus guys who do a workout in a very chill mentality, kind of just relaxed, casual, you know? Like, I want to get to a point where if you put a brainwave scanner under my hat mid-set, especially mid-squats, I can guarantee, but at least for most other sets, then, you know, whatever metric it can read for like my physical exertion, I want to redline it every time. You know, that doesn't mean I want to bench so heavy that I rip my pecs off, but you can go crazy hard with moderate weight. That just means you're really taking it to legit failure. And that's something that I think doesn't get enough love. You know, we're always talking about working out in the gym as though it's just this simple activity where you do it and then you get the results that come with it, and that's the end of it. You know, are those results worth it for you? But, you know, it just doesn't get enough. I don't think it gets talked about enough about how much more productive, exciting, and just enjoyable it is to work out when you're really into it, when you get into the zone of everything. You may as well be in a music video to the song that you're listening to in the sets that you're doing. You know, and it doesn't matter if you're not benching the most out of everybody in the gym, because you know, for you, that's a wild ass set, right? It's your world, we're living in it. At least when you're doing a set. You know, in between, when you're looking for machines, we're sharing. But if you unrack something and you're about to get after it, dude, nothing else should really distract you too much. You know, I mean, if I really get into a wild set, I don't even know what somebody would say if they were talking behind me. Like, it's not gonna clock. All right, so I'm gonna try to get myself that amped tonight. Chest. Not sure what I want to start with, because do I start heavy? Do I start light and then move on to heavy pressing? I'm not sure. I used to think that it was stupid to do flies before heavy pressing it, because in my mind I was like, well, why would I want to fatigue myself, or why would I want to tire myself out with a light movement before doing a heavy one? Like, that was a very bro science-y logic that I was using. But now I actually see the benefit where it's like, okay, well, to pre-exhaust with flies would mean I wouldn't need so much weight later. And honestly, I think the set's efficiency or effectiveness doesn't really change too much as long as I still seriously bring it, you know. And then that opens up my training world to the idea of doing sets lighter squeezing first, and then pre-exhaust hard heavy ones later once I'm already pumped, you know. I really like squatting after already getting a little bit of a quad pump from leg extensions first, which you would think, oh, well, you give yourself a quad pump, your quads are going to be weaker during the squat. I disagree. You know, when they're fresh, when they're warm, when they've got a good amount of blood flowing in them, when I put the load of a squat through my quads and I get into it, they're already like just in a prime state for force exertion, you know. So I think that's something to be asked to a power lifter, you know, because I mean, when I'm squatting, it's a really heavy set. I want heavy weight and high reps, you know, at least 8. 8 is the lowest that I want to go on a set of squats. So I don't think a power lifter would want to pump up his quads before a set, but I'm sure they'd have something to say. You know, so if you know or you are a highly experienced power lifter, I'd love to hear your take. a little more on the simple side of things, but it's kind of how these lifts become. You know, my biggest concern is have a good lift, bring it, and then, you know, don't overdo it food-wise, which right now isn't much of a challenge, but it's getting gradually more, well, let's just say more real, right? Like, it's not that I'm going to sit here and chow down on 10,000 calories right now off the rip and say, oh, I'm so sick of dieting, but it will get its way there. You know what I'm saying? There's I mean, it's basically just a truth, right? In a real deficit where you're using internal energy stores for, you know, burning your body fat, getting a little bit leaner, odds are your stomach's probably going to be giving you signals where it's like, dude, you're freaking hungry, giving you that cue to want to go eat something, and you got to fight that, you know. And on average, you have to be feeling a little bit more on the hungrier side than full side, and it's just kind of how it is. You know, you can make it easier on yourself, right? Get a bunch of you know, sugar-free drinks on the regular, or just carry around like a jug, Crystal Light style, or any other kind of substitute you might like. Constantly drink that. Usually for me, tons of fluids do act a little bit as, I mean, maybe not a hunger suppressant per se, but it at least gives me that kind of like stimulus of having something that tastes good, and then, you know, having things move into my stomach, right? It's not food, it's just water, but, you know, it kind of does it for me, right? So the longer, I mean, honestly, it's probably going to take a little bit before this diet gets hard for me per se, you know, because I'm not in a rush. I am in no rush, because I want to be extra crazy ass lean in, so what month is it right now? September. So that means I had a lot of trouble remembering my months when I was a kid. It took me a while to actually get the hang of it. But October, November, December, January, February. Yeah, I got about 5 months to really bring it, you know. And honestly, that might even be a little longer than necessary, you know. But I want to get on a very good track now, because, I mean, for one, I want to be lean coming into next year, and then 2026 is the year of a lean Sam. Like, I don't want to just instantly jump into a bulk, because I think I'm kind of desensitizing my system to eating so much food, because I always just diet for a little bit and then start eating a bunch of food again. So I think it'll be a good break to stay on the leaner side next year, to kind of totally get into a baseline, and then see what off-season looks like later on. So as much as I'm just going to get lean on my own because I like it, it's also in tandem with a certain bodybuilding show, right? So I want to be extra lean for that, much leaner than I was the first time. That's really my biggest concern. And the way that I'm going to do that is with this diet being a bit more gradual. I mean, I was pretty consistent with the last one, but even more consistent. And then by giving myself a little bit more time, I'm going to get a bit leaner, because I probably could have had another month in me for that last diet. I kind of overdid it with my cardio a little bit, because in my mind I was like, nobody else is going to do 2 hours of cardio a day, and I'm going to do it. And I think it was a little much, right? You want higher activity levels and lower food intake to increase this gap of your calorie deficit. But if your activity levels get too high on a lower food intake, you're kind of just going to start stressing out your system. You know, you kind of want them to be in a good equilibrium. So that's where I think getting to, I don't know, probably an hour a day, low intensity, steady state is about right. So maybe 30 minutes seated bike, 30 minutes treadmill. So 30 minutes in the morning on the bike, 30 minutes treadmill after a workout. And 30 minutes on the treadmill is very low impact. It's not huge, it's not insane, difficult cardio or anything. That'll probably be what I get up to, and then that will be it. I'll limit myself to make that the activity, and then leverage the rest of the deficit by the amount of food that I'm eating. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, by giving myself a bit more time, I am hoping I can use it accordingly to make the adjustments that I want to, so I can really kind of get myself into the freak factor that I hope I'll be able to reach. But as long as I'm freakier than last time, well, then I'm good. That's the whole point, you know. And as a little bit of a gauge I was, how I looked in the gym the week before the first show in Vegas. That was a cool look. That was a lean but also kind of full Sam. And then for me to actually compete in the amateur classic physique at my height, I really had to suck down. I had to freaking sweat out an extra 9 pounds of water. Like, not awesome. And I'm not talking physically, like, I felt fine. But to lose that much water in that period of time kind of just shrunk me down. So it wasn't as though I lost muscle per se, but the muscle I did have, it wasn't as full as it could have been. So that's, but half of that is just a necessity. Right? I waited a little while to do my first show, so I really had to push it. And for some, like a certain 𝒮𝓂 𝒮𝓊𝓁𝑒𝓀, I mean, shit, for him, he did much better, well, at least as me just looking at him on his own, like he looked like a total beast at this last open bodybuilding show in Italy. And now he's on track to freaking hit Mr. Olympia Open. I mean, this is going to be something to see, for sure. But my, yeah, so as long as I can get crazy diced leaner than ever, then that's really what my goal is. And I don't need to rush into it. I've got some time, and I want to make this a very gradual, solid diet. Now everything else is still twice a week, but with legs, it's quads, hamstrings. Well, hamstrings and adductors. I make sure to combine the two. So that's kind of the plan for tonight. And tonight is the less flashy of the two. Tonight's hamstrings and adductors. So, not wild, not crazy, but what I would describe as necessary. And I think this is this could be argued. I don't hear anybody hyping this up as much recently, but one thing that I really, and maybe it's just I believe it. Maybe I just believe it. Maybe it's bro science propaganda from older bodybuilders. But the idea that getting a really hard squeeze and hold with some lighter weight, depending on the movement, right? I mean, it's going to depend on the movement. That's actually going to just kind of add to, I don't know what you call the graininess of your look. Or I guess what would be my hamstrings today. So there's a different sensation I get from doing like a set of RDLs, pretty heavy. I'm working, they're getting pumped. Versus maybe a lighter leg curl where I'm really like just holding like a crazy squeeze before, actually racking the set with partials and things like that. And it's not even so much that like I think that it's magical and it's like insanely effective compared to just any other portion of the movement. How I'm looking at it is it's like you've got the movement, right? You've got loading of the weight, you've got the speed at which you're doing the reps, and then there's the full range of motion at which those reps are done. So at the bottom, right, I want a decent amount of tension in the stretch, of course, and at the top there's a little bit of a buffer, right? It's like a situation where you could do a set that looks exactly like the other guy, but you're actually getting a little bit more out of it, because it's you can't induce any more tension in the stretch position of a movement, because if you do, well, then that's just going to start lifting the weight, right? It's just not going to do anything. So that's where what I'm saying is, as you get to the top, like imagine this is a hamstring curl or even just a regular curl, as I get all the way up here, that's where, okay, this is the top of the movement. I can't bend my arm anymore. It's not going to move. Like, this is just as high as it goes. Or maybe it depends on just the movement path of the machine or anything like that. And then when you get to that top position, there is no more moving, there is no more loading. You can't lift the weight to any substantial degree anymore. But what you can do is you can just induce a little bit of extra tension. It's like you're doing a pec deck. Your hands are now touching. You can squeeze extra hard, right? Or leg extensions. You get to the top of the leg extension, you don't just kind of sit there and float it. Like when you get to the top, you give it an extra squeeze, like you're trying to bend your legs backwards, straight out of The Exorcist. And when I'm dieting down, that does tend to, at least having a few sets thrown in that style, let me just get a better feeling of the lift. Like I wouldn't want to just come in and start slapping weight around like nothing. For me to actually be much more intentional with some of these reps, especially the lighter sets, it does let me get more out of less, which right now is definitely the point, because I don't want to rip my hamstrings off by going crazy heavy for no reason. That'd just be stupid. I'm still going to do a heavy, nasty set, right? I'm still going to do one where it's like moderate weight, I'm a little bouncier, the reps are much faster of a tempo, but that's in tandem with a lighter squeezing set that's much more burn focused, right? And I think that synergy of the two styles, you know, light and squeezing, then sometimes a little heavier and nasty, they just blend well, right? I'm talking sweet and sour. I'm talking, is it salty and savory? I don't know. Imagine your favorite food and imagine the two types of, like, you know, flavors that go into it as like the top two components. That's what I'm talking about when I say a squeezing set versus what I would describe as a little bit of a nastier, heavier set. And I don't mean nasty, I just mean like heavy, a little bit faster, like you're just giving it all you've got. I'm not saying do the set nasty. What I'm saying is get nasty for the set, if you follow me. You know, that's not like level 1 gym nomenclature, but we know what we're talking about, right? I like the consistency, and it just kind of scratches me where I need it to tell me that what I'm doing is like actually consistent, repeatable, accurate calorie burnage. Because really that's, and it's kind of boring. Like it's kind of like you're just doing your own accounting of your diet and your calories and everything. But boring is good. Boring means things are working. Boring means that if every day you're looking at the same numbers of calories of meals and cardio, that's what's really going to tell you you're on track. You know, it's when you're not tracking any of that stuff, and maybe you're just like thinking you're going to wing it and get lean for like no reason. I don't see it. Personally, I don't see that happening really to anybody. But I'm not your dad, but I will tell you that for me, cardio, calorie tracking, it's a step in what I would call the right direction. You know, and there's some guys where the whole point of working out is I work out and I have a really good routine that I'm strict with myself with so that I don't have to worry about dieting later, so that I can just hit the gym, lift hard, really get after it, and then not worry about it outside of the gym. And that's a totally legit take, you know, because then that's giving them their stress-free kind of just livability of, man, I get to kind of eat whatever I want. I'm in decent shape because I'm working out so hard. Nice, right? That's solid. But what I am going to say is for those who maybe know they want to track it, they're just not sure if they want to deal with it. It's like, yeah, I could track it. I probably would get in really good shape, but I don't know if I want to deal with it. That's the kind of person, someone who's like on the edge of going for it. That's who I want to talk to and say, do it. Or, well, you know, whatever I could say to that particular person to get them the most motivated to do it, because you won't regret it, right? It's something where it's in terms of the gym. I've had a couple talks with some of my buddies about this. You really see the matrix, right? Once you get into cardio and calories and realizing like, oh shit, I actually have to make sure I eat like this, but I'm getting like way leaner than I ever have been before. Like, shit, this freaking works. You know, like little things like that. I'm trying to think of a different example of something that's like close, but no cigar, kind of, I don't know. But once you get it, and once people actually really dive in and say, holy crap, dude, I'm making more progress than I ever have before. I'm actually losing weight. I'm getting leaner. I got to buy new jeans. It's hard to go back, because then you actually like realize, maybe not the power you have, but you realize like your ability to influence your body's composition. And it's not the craziest thing in the world to do. You know, it's not easy. I would never say that, but it's not like, you know, astronaut difficult. As hard as it is just looking in the pantry, saying that you kind of want to eat something, and fighting kind of the the urge, whilst knowing no one is gonna freaking smack your hand away, right? I'm gonna go home right now and there's a bunch of freaking random ass things in the pantry I can just scruff down. I'm not like super in like a craving mode right now, so I'm not worried about it. But fast forward a few months when I'm like really getting into it, like I'm getting freaking hungry, nobody's gonna say right? When you go into the pantry and you reach for that Hershey bar, you reach for those that tub of Ben & Jerry's, you reach for like a couple of the Oreos that are still in the sleeve, a bunch of them are already eaten. Nobody's going to know it was you, right? You're not going to have like a little game menu character pop up and say, that's not actually what you want to do. Like, you're going to go for it, right? And that's the hard part. That's really as hard as it is. And if you can get over that little hump on the regular and basically say to yourself, I'm not going to eat that. I like to give myself a little bit of like a chip on my shoulder kind of mentality where I'm like, I don't need to eat that right now. Screw that. I'm locked in. I still want to eat it, but I say that to myself because it makes, it gets me back on track knowing like that's not what my goal is. This is the whole point of why I'm doing this. Make yourself feel cool for doing it. That's kind of my thought process. But everybody's going to have their own logic. But as long as you kind of try tracking everything, maybe ask or watch different people for different tips on how to do it, you should start to get a gist of how you can actually go about it in a way that'll actually work for you. That's what I call good. That's what I call pretty freaking good. And sets like those, probably the last 3 of that like incline bench cable setup that I was doing, those are some pretty solid sets in terms of comfortability to reach failure, if you kind of catch what I'm following. Because I think there's a sweet spot where you're going heavy enough, but it's still light enough that you can do upwards of 10 reps where, it's not like leg extensions where you're getting hit with like that burning effect and you just can't squeeze it anymore because it's just a pain thing. Because I wasn't feeling insane like chest burning during those sets of squeezing presses because they were still heavy enough that the load was hard enough that I couldn't get to that burn range. It was more so just inability to freaking move, and those are sets where really no one can judge it for you, because you could fake it. If I did 3 less reps every one of those sets, I probably could have faked it that it was like extreme failure, and I'm like, and you wouldn't even notice. You know what I'm saying? So how many sets are getting faked in your gym that you don't know about, right? That you don't see happen, and they just gets thrown by the wayside. Not cool. But sets like that, like when I said I wanted to dig deep for that next set of flies, what I really mean there is like, okay, I want to get to a point where those last few reps, the only reason I rack the weight is because I physically can't do any reasonable amount of a rep anymore. Not because it was kind of hurting or it was kind of tender or anything else along those lines. I'm talking pure inability to move. I'm sending signals as hard as I can from my brain through my spine into my chest, and it's not listening. It's refusing to continue because of the reps that I put it through before. And it really helps to do those squeezing reps in the beginning for a set like that, because it kind of fast tracks where failure ends up being. Because if all those reps were really quick, well, then I just kind of keep pumping them out. Maybe I'd even get double the number of reps than that first set I did, where I actually squeezed and held for like the first 6 reps and then had to back off to, the ones where I was kind of pumping it a little and then just doing partials, So that's just one where it's a little bit of a self-actualizing or self-proof of, okay, do I want it? Because I want every set to actually progress in intensity. There are times where, maybe from squatting really heavy, obviously, sorry about that. But there are times when obviously the squat is so wild that the rest of quads ends up being a little more chill, just because it's leg extensions, and things like that. That's a little different. But for a regular workout where there is no crazy, heavy, wild set like that, every set I kind of want to essentially raise the bar of the threshold of intensity that I'm holding myself to, and I want it to increase. I want it to progress set by set by set throughout the whole lift, because at least just from how I see it, that's a good setup. Because then, I've had days, honestly, hamstrings, since hamstrings is the start of most of my leg days, that's where I feel this the most. And what I'm talking about is when I'm like just kind of walking in, not like super caffeinated up yet because I just drank the pre-workout, because I want to be fully caffeinated by the time I start quads. So usually set 1 and 2 of hamstrings ends up being sometimes not as intense. Not lately. I haven't been hit with this for a little while, but what'll happen is like I start it, and then that puts me in a good position to reflect. Right? Let's say I just did a scrappy set. That puts me in a position to say, what the frick was that? But obviously in a more serious manner. I don't stand for that. That's not how I roll. And that set doesn't even count. Like when I count the workout, that just gets counted as a warm-up set, because now I'm actually there, and that's where kind of that rule of self-regulating how much you're going to bring it is going to come into play. Because on times when you don't, if you know that you should, well then if you catch yourself slacking, then it's just a cue. It's like you got to wake up, and odds are you'll know that you got to wake up because you'll want to actually bring it. And it's kind of a weird, I guess you can say almost like paradoxical thing, where doing a scrappier set sometimes when everything isn't going your way and you're super hyped up actually can flip around into more hype and more intensity, because now you're saying, all right, I gotta get real. I'm not the guy who does a set like that. I'm gonna bring it on the next one. And then further and further and further. And even if I don't, even if I can only reach here, but I want to get to here, the fact that I still want to just bring it a little bit higher, set by set by set, that's just a good headspace for me. That really gets me amped up. It gets me excited. It makes me want to go harder. And it's how progress works for everyone. Because once you've reached a certain level of anything, once you've reached a certain level of size or of strength or of just progress or skill, well then what does that tell you? That tells you what you have done is possible for you to do. And if it's possible for you to do, I think there's a way of looking at it where you say, well, that means you can do more. Or at least maybe you can do more. And if there's a maybe I can do more, well then guess what? Maybe I want to find out, right? I want to actually get a little bit further. So when it comes to describing a workout, I don't think I'll ever have a perfect workout. And I don't want to think I'll ever have a perfect one, because I know I always can go harder. There's always more in the tank. There's always more water in the towel that you're just trying to wring out. And it's the fact that there's always more, and it's kind of this unreachable thing that I think gives me a good visualization of like just trying to step forward, right? Trying to go up another rung and trying to make it so that I'm a better lifter and I go harder today than I did yesterday. And as long as the goal is to be better in the future than you are now, and you actually actualize it, well then guess what? You're good, right? Progress and gains and everything, it's just a waiting game, because you're the person who's now set up just to build momentum forward, right? You're the guy where you're, it's not really good. I'm trying to think of a good little reference for this, but I guess there isn't really. But either way, every time the ball spins around, you're giving it a little bit more of a push, and it just keeps speeding up. Right? And an object in motion is going to stay in motion, and if every force that you act on it is in a positive direction, well then guess what? You're going to fast forward, and you're going to look back at photos of yourself when you were 16 and when you were 18 or 20 or whatever where you're actually starting working out at. You're going to say, holy shit. I know I do. I know I look back and I'm like, this is freaking nuts, and I guess it doesn't feel as crazy for me now, of course, because like I'm literally living it, but if you were to ask 16-year-old Sam when I started working out how any of this would have turned out, like if you said, is this what's going to happen gains wise, just everything wise, yeah, I mean, even just talking gains, 250 like light, like dieting from, or a flat 250, let's just say it would have been hard to believe. I was getting into like what gets you amped, pre-gym, pre-lift, pre-anything, pre-squat, pre-cardio, pre-whatever. But this is where currently I think we're taking a hit or taken a hit in motivation, at least in terms of anything new. You know, will there ever be another Rocky? I'm not so sure. I'm not so certain. You know, I think Creed was good. I don't think it scratched that same itch of just the base level, I don't know, the Stallone-ness of the original. And that's just one thing. I mean, it's just hard to recreate that, you know? Once you capture lightning, well, let's just say it's tricky to do it again, even if it strikes twice. Right? I think personally, I think the second strike for Rocky, honestly, I consider Rocky 1 and 2 essentially one. That's like an immediate continuation. That almost counts as one. It's just part 1 and then part 2 of that original story. And I think the second strike was obviously Rocky 4. But that's a one-off kind of thing, because it's just hard to recreate. Right? So I'm keeping my eyes out, of course. I think everybody knows how good Dune was. But shit, man, Dune ain't new. Dune's just a remake of that older movie, except the movie, the quality of CGI at the time just wasn't there to actually bring it to reality. But I guess that's kind of unrelated. That's an adjacent topic of the workout, right? The workout's the workout. The hype for the workout, I mean, it's just, it bleeds into everything, right? But no, so I got some legs today, quads, a touch of calves, but quads is going to be the primary, the primary component. And I'm not exactly sure what I want to do, because I'm not going to squat like a behemoth. I'm going to chill out on my heavy pressing, because my recovery, or I guess you could call it my recoverability for my knees, is like, up to level 10 when I'm eating a crazy amount of food in an off season. Dieting down, a little bit less so, right? I don't have that much excess energy to, reconstitute any micro tears of my tendons, or, not that that's exactly what it's like, but I mean, I think we get the gist. So instead of a crazy heavy set of squats, I'll see how I want to go about it. Because I don't want to give my quads a break. I'm not saying I'm coming in here to just give them a light little touch up and just a little bit of detail work and leave. But just the nature that I'm not eating a ton of food now means I can't really, put the thrust to maximum. So that just means I have to back off in terms of overall heft. But I think what that means is I can really, so wait for the caffeine to kick in. But I can really lean into the supersetting kind of pumpish aspect of quads. So I think I have a few combos I'm already considering. I think leg extensions into back squats might be a little too crazy, but maybe the fact that I'm saying that it would be crazy should make me do it, because I'm already thinking it's crazy. But I'll think it over. But either way, I would imagine I'm probably going to be in that maybe seven-ish set range for quads, and I do not mind a good balance of half pressing, half leg extensions. I think that'll be all right. But really, I think I'll just have to wait until I get in there. And this is something I think a lot of fitness characters might not want to say, because if you're somebody posting yourself working out and you want people to think you know what you're doing, you're probably going to say, okay, I know exactly what my workout's going to be. This is it. Like, as if you've got this like precognition of exactly how you feel. But sometimes I got to actually get into the gym and let my surroundings sort of influence what I think is going to be good at the time. And not even what I think is going to be good, but what I think is going to like mesh well with my current state of being. Let's say I go in and my left knee, for whatever reason, was just totally wrecked about a year ago when I was in Petoskey, Michigan, which is a little town up there that I really like. That's like a yearly return visit, like 6-ish hour drive or so. Very quaint. They've got a badass gym, right? little shout out to Center City Gym. 90% sure Center City Gym, but it's man, what the hell was I even about to say? Give me 10 more seconds. I don't remember. That was probably my hardest loss of thought out of all these workouts ever. But yeah, well, I don't know what I was getting into, but I kind of, oh yeah, no, okay, no, I just remembered. So a year ago, a little cliff, it's that same, you know, that video where Chris, might have been Mike, either Mike or Chris, one of the Trent twins, jumped off that pier into the lake. It's the same city as that. But I did, when I was there, I did a gainer. You know, you run forward, you do a backflip, and I jumped off of one leg. And, you know, at the time I was bulked up. So 260-pound Sam to a single leg backflip. Let's say my knee was a little tender after that. So if I come into the gym and for whatever reason my knee feels like that, maybe I dropped something on it, maybe I banged it against like a, you know, a door frame, any reason, well, I'm going to say, let's do something else. Let's pivot, right? Let's change gears, but not downshift, if you can follow my gist. Or, you know, maybe I get another leg extension and I say, this leg extension must have fell from heaven the way that it's feeling today. I'm going to camp out and do 8 sets of leg extensions just because they feel so good. Well, then I'm going to do that. You know? And I think to neglect that sort of like in the zone feeling of different movements and to say, you know, I mean, this feels good, but I should do these other things because that's what everyone says you should do. You know, I don't like it. I think it's a little herd mentality. You know, I would never say you should only do leg extensions in a workout indefinitely for your quads and never do anything else, because I don't even think that. But if there's a day where for whatever reason they feel crazy good, you're getting a crazy activation, just you're more pumped, you're pumped out of your freaking mind, well then camp out. You know, I don't see the reason not to. And I mean, really, even on paper, I don't see the reason not to, because how many times, let's say you're somebody who actually does hit legs twice a week. That's 100 leg days a year. Technically, when I'm dieting, I'm only doing quads once a week, so it's 50, half the year. But, I mean, it's like minimum 70 leg days a year. If you do the same thing every leg day, well, then every leg day is the same, right? So, or every lift is the same. So throw yourself a curveball, right? Do something you've never done before. I think I can be a little bit better about that too. Sometimes I'm a little stingy with doing like workouts that are already written because I like the idea of adjusting accordingly over time. But you know, let's say something just seems extra cool, then I'm probably going to want to do that, right? But there's no hard or fast rules when it comes to the working out. That's all I'm trying to get at. I'm no professional in the matter, but I can recognize a few classic patterns of human psychology. And one that I always tend to notice myself is you always want what you don't have, and you never value what you do. Right? Now, of course, that's not like an accurate generalization for everyone all the time, but I mean, in a way, you know, if you got shit going on, it's not difficult to say, why don't I have this, right? It's always, you know, I have a huge bench, I have a huge squat. Oh, my arms aren't that big though. Or just, you know, random things like that, right? And I mean, I see it. I see it happen to a lot of guys. I mean, when it comes to people posting, if you're gonna post yourself online, you gotta be able to handle people basically, I don't even want to say hating, because more of it is kind of just trolling. It's kind of fun to just write a mean comment and then swipe away. But you know, you got to be able to handle that. And in life, I think it's what's the ratio? How many good interactions can you have with someone in a day, where one bad one is your story for the day, One guy cut you off. 3 other people waved you on at a stop sign or at a 4-way and said, you go first. Right? One guy versus 4 of those easily outweighs those. You know, so what I'm talking about here is, I mean, when I'm bulked up, I want to get cut, and when I'm cut down, I want to be bulked. What I'd like to do is get to, and in a way, that's always going to be the case, because it's just kind of, it's just part of the chase. But I do want to get to a point where I really am just content that I'm on track with where I'm headed. And I think I am, you know, for the most part. But I can always catch myself where it's like, oh man, I wish I could be leaner. Like even today, I'm looking at this pose down, pretty cool, and I'm like, it's gonna be cool when I'm leaner. Oh shit, man, it's cool now. It's gonna be cooler, and it's also cool now. Goodness. So that's all I'm trying to get at, right? If you got good knees, if your elbows are feeling strong and your shoulders don't hurt and you're benching heavy, enjoy, right? Anybody who's watched The Office, which is essentially everyone, I'm talking Andy quote of the freaking universe. Right? Try to enjoy, or you know, however he said it, try to enjoy the good old times while you're in them, right? I've already passed a few of them, you know. I like at my college gym with a whole crew of everybody all in the same space, all with the same, just, you know, mentality and energy. If you ever have a really good gym, a big community, maybe you move, maybe you whatever, that's the important stuff, right? And it's not as though the gains that you're making in the gym isn't important, or, you know, aren't important. That's kind of, you know, the point. But I think it's a little bit of a situation where the real treasure is, you know, it's not a bigger chest, but it's you know, it's the people you meet along the way. Now, of course, I want a bigger chest too, but I'm not so crazy that I'm coming into the gym and putting the blinders on, and I'm just like mean. I'm certainly not a mean mugger kind of guy, because it's fun. It's parallel play. So what parallel play is like if you got a classroom full of kids and they're all doing their own individual activity together, they're not exactly playing a game, but everyone's doing the same thing at once, and it's almost more fun when more people are doing it, you know. So that's why I still bounce around different gyms. I mean, if I wanted to, I could just sit in the private gym forever and like completely disappear from the world and just do my workouts, and that's not the point, man. Like, the fun part is getting to see everybody, you know. So that's just something I don't want to. And I've thought this even before, like a while ago. But I've always kind of tried to keep that in the front of my mind, where it's like, you know, if things are good, just try to make hay while the sun is still shining. But really good arm day. I was starting to feel my elbows just a touch, not exactly like sore tender, but a little bit on track to getting there. So, you know, just its own kind of thing. But that's a little bit of a warning sign, right? That's when you've got, I don't know what the perk is, but, you know, when an enemy is behind you and it alerts you with like that red hue on that side of your screen, that's what feeling a little bit of tenderness in your body lifting is. It's just a little insight into like, hey man, watch yourself. You better be careful about that. And that is something where it's going to happen. Obviously, you can try your best to prevent it, but you know, whatever, it's going to happen. Everybody gets tweaked. Everybody gets little things. It's just part of life. But how you react to it, that is what separates the injured from the uninjured. That's what separates those who maintain their momentum versus those who give themselves a setback unnecessarily. You know, imagine how dumb I would look if, well, obviously, now that I'm dieting down, I'm not going to lift a ton of weight anyway. And by a ton, I mean like more than I can at least handle. But imagine if, like, let's say I'm in an off season and I'm like, guys, I'm doing it. 455 on incline. I'm going to make this shit happen today or tomorrow. And then like during the warm up of that lift, I said, ooh, well, my chest kind of hurts a little bit. Doesn't hurt that bad. Let's still go for it. I don't even want to say it, but you know what could happen next, right? I'd be a fool, you know, because it's like you got warned and you still did it anyway, you know. So I'm kind of getting on all sorts of topics here, but I guess all that's to say is just watch yourself. But yeah, now is about the time where things are going to get serious dieting wise. Not that I mean there wasn't an important phase these last 4 weeks anyway. Like, I've not been in a bulking diet. I have been in a much lower calorie, just maintenance phase. But now's about the time where things are actually going to get consistent. Like, I've still been having a little bit of treats and things like that. Time to jump on real play. So it's almost like the diet actually starts now. Obviously, I mean, I'm 10 pounds lighter than when it really started, but that's kind of a cheating phase, just because the only weight that I lost was really intramuscular water, carbs, and then maybe a little body fat, but not much. So now is when the macro tracker is going to become very consistent. 250 grams of protein, 80 of fats, and then I gotta look at it again, do the math, because I want to look over the average of my last week of calories, because my weight hasn't really changed much. I've been about steady at like 252-ish this last week. So whatever I've been eating is about enough to stay the same weight. So if over the last few weeks, or the last few days, week, whatever, my average calorie intake has been about 30-something hundred, maybe 3,000, maybe, I gotta go back and look, then what that means, all right, if I want to start getting leaner, I need to reduce that intake, right? If you got a fat cat, you're not gonna free feed them. You're only gonna give them 2 bowls a day, or a bowl a day, or half a bowl twice a, whatever, right? Because clearly, however much food they've been eating is just a little bit too much. So reduce calorie intake, reduce body weight, right? But I'm not gonna instantly starve, because I'm playing 2 games at once for this diet. 1, lose body fat, get leaner. 2, maintain as high of a metabolism and essentially, cardio, what was I saying, caloric necessity as possible, right? Because when you're dieting, you're fighting yourself in a way, right? So what I mean by that is, for one, you're getting, what am I saying here? Oh yeah, for one, you're reducing your calorie intake just so that you can continue to be in a calorie deficit. But every time you reduce your calorie intake over the next few weeks, as you get leaner, your body is essentially going to adapt and it won't need as much food, right? And this is an exaggeration, but a 100-pound dude or 150-pound dude needs less food to stay the same weight as a 200-pound dude. Do we agree? So if that's the truth, if a horse needs to eat more food than a goat because he's got more body weight, more blood to pump, more air to breathe, more muscle to oxygenate, well, as you get smaller, as you weigh less as an organism, you need less food to stay alive at that weight. So by the time I'm 240, I'm going to be eating a few hundred calories less than I am now. By the time I'm 230, I'm probably going to be eating a few hundred calories less than I am now. So what I want to do is just gradually reduce my intake so that I have room to work with. Because as long as I've got a good amount of energy still going in and out of me, food in, energy out, my training's going to be better, I'm going to lift harder, my cardio is going to be easier to do. If I just jump to 1,000 calories right now, like somehow I locked myself up in in some kind of enclosure, and I only got 1,000 calorie ration per day, which would only be, if that was my choice, if I only had 1,000 calories, I'd want all of it in protein. I'd just get 250 grams of protein. If that were the case, I'd get pretty damn lean. But my metabolism would very quickly drop to that level somehow. Well, it would just quickly drop super low, and then where do I go next, right? I'm not going to be able to move that marker any further, because you kind of always start to adapt. So it's this game of eating little enough that you're actually losing weight, but not doing it so quickly that you start to adapt super quick. You know what I'm saying? Because I want my energy up and my body fat down. So I just want to ride that line. Like when guys talk about a really marginal calorie surplus to bulk up with, I see the logic. I think it's not going to hurt you to do a little more. My thing with a bulk is eat enough to continue to grow and train hard and be full of carbs, but just don't get fat. Like if you can see in the mirror you are gaining body fat rapidly, you're probably eating a little bit too much, But with the dieting down, it's just this little cat and mouse game. All right. And if I want to equip myself well enough to know what I'm doing, I don't actually have to be a kinesiologist. I don't have to be a ASA certified personal trainer. All I have to do is obviously track all the food that goes in, even if I cheat, even if I grab a snack pack of Doritos from a vending machine, I'm going to track those calories so I at least know what happened. And then track my weight consistently, plug it into a Google Sheets on my phone so I can see the pattern over time, and then adjust accordingly. If I'm the same weight all week, and all week I ate 3,000 calories, 3,000 is my maintenance. So I'm going to drop it to 20. Usually I drop it by, I've gradually dropped it lower and lower slowly. So I think this time I might only drop it by 100, because I'm giving myself time here. Like I only want to be competition lean come like mid-February. So I've got time to ease into it and really get a gradual kind of muscle maintaining diet. But probably drop it by at least 100 calories. And then, okay, this week I ate 2,900 calories all week. I lost a pound. Good. Do it again the next week. I actually ate 2,900 again. I lost half a pound. Okay. Next week, 2,900 again. Didn't lose any weight. Drop the intake by 100, repeat. And when I keep my fats at about a third of my protein, so if I eat 250 grams of protein, 80 of fats, that leaves me with like a couple hundred grams of carbs. The carbs is where I pull from. I don't really change my fats. I do lower them gradually, but you kind of you need some just because it keeps you moving around well. But yeah, I don't want to. Oh, that's its own discussion. What I'm going to do probably in the next couple of days is I'm going to go in and bring. I've got a whiteboard in the gym. I think I'll set it up on an easel and I'll try to really explain what I just got into a little bit better, like graphs and charts, because there is a Sam method to dieting. I didn't coin it. It's just from picking up random bits of information from all over the place, and for me it works, right? So if you like my explanation, then I would like you to try it. But if my explanation doesn't make any sense to you and you think I'm stupid, well then listen to someone else talk about dieting and try to get it from them. As much as it's an objective thing, we're not objective machines, right? We're not going to do a daily routine that we don't actually like or can stick to. It's just not going to happen. So when it comes to dieting and training and motivation and everything, it kind of can't be forced. It has to come internally, right? If a dad, or I guess a dad's probably a good example. If a dad is like, man, my kid's going to be a pro football star, my kid's going to be a Q-back of the 49ers, and he like forces him to play football, forces this goal onto his kid for years and years, maybe it'll work. Maybe. Right? Maybe it's like is there a situation where that was the story, where the guy was like forced into greatness? But it doesn't happen a lot. More than likely, the kid's just going to end up being pissed at him, say, I hate football, and want to do something completely backwards. And it's the same thing with the gym, right? I'm sure I've seen it a ton. I see guys who are in the gym, and it's clearly because they were brought, and they're not into it. They don't like it. There's just something about it. The fact that it's physically difficult, you're actually exerting yourself, you're breathing heavy, your heart's beating. You have to want to do it, and that's the only way, right? So that's where it gets a little bit tricky, because what are you supposed to do? Incept the idea? right? We're talking like full-on DiCaprio, implant the idea of getting jacked into somebody's mind to get them to do it. Oh man, you know, and it's with everything. You can lead the lifter to the gym, you can't make him pump. He's got to do it because he wants it. But yeah, that was a good. What was that? 4 completely unrelated topics all in one. That was good. Yeah, that was a good one. My goodness. But no, that was good. So now I've got a few things to do. Get some protein in my system, which is really my primary goal. All the meals that I eat when I'm dieting, you know, not to get back into another whole section. The protein part, that's important. Well, I want the protein intake to be the primary portion of the meal to fill me up. Ground beef, turkey, fish, chicken, sardines. Sardines are a little fatty. I'm not going to do a ton of them. That's what the primary section of the meal is. And everything else is kind of just, you know, a little side on the side. But yeah, nothing else to say. Arms, highly pumped. I'm very excited to get leaner and see all the different shoulder striations and cuts and, you know, everything else that I've got hidden underneath that will be unearthed by this coming deficit. And then just keep this train rolling. In terms of guests at the gym, well, actually I don't know. I gotta reach out to some guys because I mean I've been watching freaking all the fitness I've been watching the fitness what do we call it, the fitness industry, like all these guys. I've been watching them forever. I want to work out with these guys too, so I'll see who I can wrangle to come over to the gym, or maybe whose gym I can go to. And when I'm dieting, that's a little bit more feasible. If I'm deep off season, I want to eat, I want to lift, I want to go home, I want to go to bed. That's most of it. But dieting down, you know, my whole thing is I gotta not eat. I gotta do things other than eating. So it makes, you know, extra things like that a bit easier.